Why is your sister not wanting to smile? Tickle, 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 tickles. Alright, guys. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Hi. Hi. So let's make a video, guys. Alright. Hi, guys. My name is Autumn. I am a surrogate doing an independent surrogacy journey. And I am here to give you all of the flaws of my situation that I didn't know and hope for the best for you. So, if you're interested in all of the information that you could probably need, I'll do another video with more questions, but this video is going to be in regards to a bunch of questions I've found that I didn't think to ask beforehand. So I'm here to kind of give you the information I didn't have when I was starting. So if you have the patience for my rambling and these girls, then follow along. First question, agency and independent route. So if you've seen my other videos, I told you about how there are a couple different routes you could go. You could do the agency route, which means that basically you kind of have everything done for you. You kind of just go to the appointments and all of that stuff. They find the lawyer for you. They find the psych evaluation for you. They kind of are just the middleman between you and the IPs and all of the important people that will get your process done. They handle your pay. They typically will find a lawyer for you. They basically do everything for you in regards to getting everything set up. And that can be a very good thing if you get overwhelmed very easily. But it can also be a bad thing because you're not finding everything yourself and everything is being chosen for you. So independent route is more so you're doing everything yourself. So you're finding your own lawyer, you're having to figure out the clinic's information, get your appointments set up, you're having to find the psych evaluation therapist or psychologist or whatever yourself. You're having to kind of push everything on your own, and it can go a lot faster that way because you don't have a bunch of people to maneuver around. But it can also take a little bit more stress towards you. So if you do your research, you'll figure out what works best for you and which situation you want to go to for your first time or whatever the case is for you. But for me, we're doing an independent route. I just figured that's what I wanted to do and that's what worked best for me. So those are the two that you have the options. And yeah, the second one, something I didn't know beforehand was that there's like lint on my couch. Ignore that. There's this thing called home checks. So basically, it's where you're gonna do a virtual tour of your home. So basically, the clinic or the agency that you're working with will want to see inside of your house. And for right reasons, make sure you're not a hoarder, make sure you're not doing drugs or there's a bunch of alcohol all over the place. Did you see the calm baby? And now this is this one. So they're gonna want to make sure that basically you're not crazy, you're not dirty, your kids are taken care of, like there's normal things in the house. And so yeah, I didn't know that there was such thing as a home check. I didn't have to do one, but in my journey along, I have found out that there's a lot of people that have to do that. We don't have curtains, so excuse that. my husband plays the game and he likes everything blacked out so that there's no sunshine. So yeah, the home checks, I didn't know were a thing. I didn't know people were going to want to see inside my house. That wasn't the case for me, but I've seen that is the case for a lot of people. And look, this is why I haven't did an update in so long, is because I'm a mom of 4 kids. I didn't know that was a thing. And for a lot of people it is. So they're going to want to see inside of your house. They're going to want to see the rooms, the kitchen, the bathrooms. Make sure that you're a clean person. From my knowledge, they're not going to want to see inside of your drawers and your closets and stuff. But yeah, so that would be a question that I would want to ask, because I didn't know that could be a possibility. And it's just like when you're kind of having guests over, you're kind of going to know if people are going to be over, because maybe they don't want you to have Subway cookies all over the place. It's just something that you might want to be prepared for. So that would be a question that I would want to ask, because you don't think to ask that kind of question when you're doing this. But for some people it is, and I didn't know that. So before I mentioned a psych evaluation. So what a psych evaluation is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to have to, or it's found for you. You're going to have to do a psych evaluation. It's basically you tell your life story to a therapist, and they make sure you're not cuckoo, and then you take a huge long test. I don't remember how much it was. I think it was like 400 questions. But basically, I'll give you the gist of it. It's a standard test that it's asking, do you do drugs? Do you drink alcohol? Are you a bossy person? Are you a shy person? I don't know if it matters if you're either one, but that definitely freaked me out, because I was just like, okay, so like what if they see me as shy, or what if they see me as too bossy? So that was just something that I would have liked to be prepared for. So the rest of that question is that, like, what if you fail? What happens if you fail? And for an agency, it depends. I'm guessing whether they always go through the same person or not. For me, I was independent and I went through, it's a website. It's called Mind 360. It finds a therapist for you. They do a Zoom meeting when your husband calls in the middle of you talking and you forget where you're at. Okay, psych evaluation, I think, is where I was at. You'll have to answer a bunch of questions. Yeah, you'll have to answer a bunch of questions, and it's basically determining whether you're crazy or not, whether you're an addict or not, alcoholic or not, and then depending on, Luna, come here. Depending on what your clinic says, your spouse might have to do it too. So just be prepared that your spouse might have to tell their therapist or the therapist their life story as well. They might have to take the test as well, just to make sure that you guys are in a stable relationship. They want to make sure that you have a support system of some sort, whether it's family or your spouse or significant other. They want to make sure that you're not going to be doing this alone. For some people, it might be okay. I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of single people doing it, so I assume that that's okay. It's just the support system that I don't know that you have to have. But I've seen a lot of people have to do it with their spouses, so just be prepared of that as well. What happens if you fail? If you fail the psych for the agency, if they all use the same one, I assume just one and done, that you might just be out of it. For my psych evaluation, I asked the lady, I said, what happens if I fail? She said, then you can't be a surrogate. So that might be it. That might be the truth. I didn't fail, so I don't know. But agency, it depends, I guess, if you were to switch the agency, but they could be using the same program, so I'm not sure. Independent route, you might be able to match again with a different couple and then find a different program with a different doctor. But personally, depending on the reason that I failed, I wouldn't be comfortable doing it. Like, you wouldn't be comfortable with someone carrying your baby if they failed the psych evaluation. So that's just my personal opinion. Take it with what you will. But yeah, you might be able to take it if you're independent. So there's that. Next one is, I see this a lot. What happens if my match and my medical clearance is taking too long and I want to rematch? So with an agency, it's all in the contracts if you can switch the agency. I'm not sure how many days or whatever. I've seen 30 days, I've seen 6 months if you can switch the agency. But rematching with a couple, if it's before transfer, I'm sure that you could rematch. If you're with an agency, they're the middleman, so if it's taking long, it's because the agency is taking long. So there's that. The clearance, the clinic could be too booked up, or it's just not being rushed enough. With independent route, it's all in your hands. So if you want it rushed, you and the IPs have to rush the process. And considering they're the ones paying for it, in my experience, they are the ones that are taken seriously. So if you're wanting it rushed, you need to rush it, and the IPs need to rush it. So in my case, it was rushed way too quickly because, as I said, a lot of these questions I wish I would have known to ask, and I wish I would have been prepared for all of the answers, but there's not a lot of information out there, so I just kind of ran into it full force, but here I am. So though I'm comfortable with everything, I wish I would have had a lot more information than I did. So if your clearance is taking too long, whether it's for the appointment or for the answers, if you're independent, you need to just call them a bunch. Like, be like, hey, we're trying to get this done. Let's get it done. Your IPs need to be like, hey, we're trying to move this along. And if it's taking too long, you have the right to rematch. It can be in your contract. If you sign contracts already, it's all in the wording. I'm sure if you don't want to be with them, the IPs are going to be like, well, I don't want to be with you either. So there's that. In my contract, it says anything before transfer. So if we hadn't transferred yet, then I had the right to like, hey, this is taking way too long. I know you guys are wanting this done, but you might feel comfortable with someone else that has the want to wait like you do. Simple as that. You can word it however you want to. Just be kind about it. Like, these people have really big hearts and they're trying to have a baby. So, and it might be the funds, it might be the doctor, it might be a specific clinic they're wanting to use. But it is your right to rematch if you want. So there's that. As far as matches goes, with an agency, you are matched with people through them, or you're given like a few profiles and you get to choose. Independence, you have a bunch of different options. Like, you could be talking to a few different people, and then once you have an appointment set up for the clearance, then you can decide who you want to be with. So there's that. I mean, with independent route, you kind of have more of a leeway. Like, you can have a few people on in a list, and if these 3 people are taking too long, then you have these options, and then, you know, whoever you're more comfortable with and whoever is going at the speed that you want to go at, then you have the right to choose. There's so many couples out there looking for surrogates that you have many of opportunities to go. So just a little word of advice. How are you paid? Monthly, lump sum, and what happens about money after you deliver? So regardless of who you go with, you're paid monthly. You're paid once a month, first of the month. That's that. I've never seen anything. I spoke to a couple agencies before I matched independently, and those contracts said monthly as well. Like, I haven't seen anything about bi-weekly or whatever. So yeah, you're paid monthly. What happens after birth? Contracts are different. It's all whatever you and your IPs were comfortable with, whatever the agency's term is. But for me, if I deliver 24 weeks, then whatever my compensation was up until that point is all I'm getting paid. What I wish I would have done was not that, because I wish I would have thought about it more, because you never think about, okay, if I deliver at 24, 25 weeks, God forbid, that's a lot on your body. That is a lot on your body, and anything can happen. And like, if you're the breadwinner in your home, then you're going to be on bed rest for who knows how long. What if you go into preterm labor and they want to keep you in the hospital and like delay your labor for a few weeks? Like, you just want to make sure that you're going to be paid, and it's a lot on your body. So you kind of have the right to be like, okay, well, you're going to have a lot to deal with your baby. I don't think you need to pay me. Or you could be like, look, this is a lot on my body regardless. Like, you have a baby. So there's that. 34 weeks is, if I deliver at 34 weeks, I get a lump sum of whatever the rest of my compensation would have been. So say I deliver at 34 weeks, I would get like whatever my compensation was up until then, I would get the remainder amount to equal what the total should have been. So yeah, there's that. And lump sum, that's regarding that. That's the only time you get a lump sum. You don't get paid a lump sum of money before you deliver a baby that they want to make sure they have. Something else I wish I would have known to look for in my contract is, this is a touchy subject, so if loss is hurtful to you, skip this part. But in my contract, it states that the baby has to be alive when they leave the hospital in order for me to get the rest of the money. I didn't look for that, and my lawyer didn't think to mention it when I was signing the contract and when we were reading through it. Yes, I definitely should have looked at it myself. I've looked at my contract a million times, but I never thought to look in the main compensation. So if the baby passes before they leave the hospital, then I don't get any more compensation, even if it's after 34 weeks. So if like they were to drop the baby and something happened, or whatever were to happen, like even if it would be their fault, then I still wouldn't get the rest of the compensation. Yes, that sounds selfish and that sounds very wrong, but it is something you should look at, because you did carry that baby for that long, and even if it wasn't your fault, like if you delivered a healthy baby, you could still be out of the rest of your compensation. So If it were me, I wouldn't want to pay someone if something happened to the baby because it was like their fault. I don't know how that could happen, but like say it were to happen. It's just something else to look forward to, or not look forward to. Look for in your contract. So yeah, that's just a word of advice. Let's see. Escrow deposits, how are you paid? Agencies use escrow. Independent, you can use escrow or just have them deposit the money. My advice, get an escrow account, even if the independent IPs are being cheaper and not wanting to use an escrow because it costs thousands of dollars just to set the account up. You know your money's going to be there the first of the month. Regardless of what happens on their end, they deposit the money in there and the escrow deposits it into your account. Deposits, you have to check constantly, make sure that the money is in your account. If it's a couple days after the first, they could have forgotten to pay you and then you're still waiting a couple more days for it to deposit. Agencies, I've heard of them sometimes not getting the like medication, the transfer fees or whatever into the people's account, like they forget to pay it. So you could also have to remind the agencies that you're supposed to be getting paid for a transfer. So just a word of advice. Either way, you could be having to remind people to pay you money. So there's that. Take it with what you will. Speaking of fees, we got fees for transfer or medication start. What if I don't get them? What if they're not in my contract? You should always get compensated. Pain and suffering is what it's called for medication and transfer. Start, stop, whatever. That also goes for birth control and mock cycle or drop cycle. You get paid for all of it. If it's not in your contract or if it says you don't get paid for it, I would definitely raise red flags because that's pain and suffering. It's not your main compensation because your main compensation does not start until you have a heartbeat, which is at 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. So that's a few weeks after you do the transfer. Say the transfer doesn't take, then you don't get compensated for any of that. And you went through a lot. Medication is a lot to go through. And if you're not getting compensated for the start of that, then that's a little messed up, in my opinion. Transfer start, medication start. You get paid once. You don't get paid each time you restart your medication. It's a one-time fee. I think mine was like $500. $500. I got that. And then the transfer, you get each time you transfer it. It's not one time and done because if you have to do multiple transfers, that's multiple pain and sufferings. So transfer, I got $1,000. And then I got lucky with that though because I transferred the 29th of the month. My contract says that I would get paid the first of the following month. Make sure you look into that. If you're transferring at the 4th of the month and your contract says first of the following month, you're not getting paid for that transfer until 4 weeks later. So I would put in the contract like 2 to 3 days after the transfer. That way you're paid for that almost immediately. So that also goes for the MedStart. MedStart and birth control are not the same thing. Birth control is a completely different thing, and there's fees for the birth control and there's fees for the MedStart. Mock cycle, you are paid for each time you do a mock cycle. I didn't do one, so I don't know what that entails, but you're paid for that as well. If it's not in your contract, then I would not finalize that contract until something is said about it. Agencies normally have it in their contract. So, yeah. Insurance, when does it start? What happens? And life insurance. Insurance, something I wish my IPs would have done, because I'm currently without insurance, which is a no-go when you are doing a pregnancy of any sort. Anything can happen, and anything can happen. So, unless they plan on doing a gap insurance enrollment doesn't start until November, and then it's not usable until January. So my transfer was in August and it's December, and I've gone without insurance since. So unless they're doing self-pay and they can afford self-pay, and they are acknowledging that you're not going to have insurance the whole time, then I would not transfer until you know you're going to have insurance. Or, I mean, if you have your own insurance, that's a different story. I'm talking to the broke people that don't have insurance. Like, my kids have insurance. I don't have insurance. So, there is gap insurances, but they're like $5,000 just for a couple months. So, that's just something that you might want to know ahead of time. I wish my IPs would have did a little more research on their end, because they told me that they did, and then there's no insurance. So that's my fault, but definitely their fault. So it's something that you should know. I wasn't aware of that because I haven't had to sign up for insurance. So it's just something that I wish I would have done. Life insurance, I've seen it happen where this scenario isn't happening, but it is the case for a lot of people. In your contract, it will say something about life insurance, and that the IPs will get some of the life insurance, like as a beneficiary, and then your beneficiaries will get the rest, because they are getting recompensated for all of their money that they've put into it so far, that if something happens, then they're getting part of your insurance, your life insurance. So there is that. Something that you probably should know, because I seen it and I was like, what? But it makes a lot of sense, because they're putting a lot of money into this, and they're gonna want to restart a new journey with someone else. So just be aware of that when you're signing your contracts. You can change the amount, you can negotiate the amount, because like your family would be going without, and it's something tragic that happens. So just be prepared to have that conversation if you need it. If you don't agree with it, then that's something that you can talk about. But just be prepared that is something that would be included most of the time, and I wasn't aware of that. Last question. Sex. When can you have it, and when do you start? Sex the whole time, besides transfer, and you can't have sex and like from transfer until you get a positive or negative beta test. Not home pregnancy test, beta blood test, to see if there is baby blood in your system or not, if there's those hormones in your system or not. So condoms are your best friend, because if you don't use condoms and you're going to use the pull-out method, if you get pregnant and it's found out that it's your baby, you have to pay every single penny of that money back after the birth, and they find out it's not their baby, and you were compensated that whole time. You are obligated to pay that money back. Rightfully so, because I would be so mad if I found out I paid all this money and it wasn't even my baby. So, that, and if you're doing surrogacy, you don't want another baby right now. So, better safe than sorry. Look, the kids are getting restless. So, yeah, you can do it. Just wrap it up and you'll be all right. If you're doing suppositories, it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be gross. I don't think anyone talks about that, but it is, and it does. And yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. Suppositories are not fun. But if your husband or whatever is comfortable with it, then to each is their own. But yeah, you can do it as long as you're safe. Protection. Pull-out method is not protection. So yeah, that was the last question that I was going to answer this go around. If I find any more questions, I'll let you guys know. If you're curious, let me know. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for staying this long while I rabble.